Now, I have the privilege of kicking off the Star Wars Identities Exhibit here at the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum. And what better person to speak to than the project manager for the entire exhibit, Andre Dessaint. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh my gosh, I'm great. I grew up watching Star Wars, and it's a thrill to see some of the original costumes and some of the pieces from the set. It must be so fun to work with all of this.
Quite exciting, quite exciting.
So the exhibit is massive. How many trucks did it take to bring all of the pieces here?
They brought 10 trucks over. We had 3 trucks of artifacts and then 7 trucks of exhibitry.
And these are transport trucks?
Transport truck, yes,
Okay.
they were.
So now, was it difficult to find a space large enough to house the exhibit?
It was quite the challenge because when we were first approached to host the exhibit, we knew we needed an 11,000 square feet exhibit space, but we didn't have a gallery that size. So we started looking around. In the museum, we looked a little bit in the museum to see if there was space, but it would have required moving too many planes and whatnot. So then we started looking at the hangar, and by moving 2 of the large planes outside that we usually bring out to do restoration projects in the summertime, we were able to liberate enough space to build a temporary 11,000 square feet gallery.
Okay, so you freed up the space, but then you were left with nothing but a massive warehouse. So what did you have to set up then?
Then we had to set up a lighting grid up above. And
so all of this was brought in that we see
all
above
of this
us.
was brought in, and that was a challenge. We had to go through engineering to make sure we could hang it off the ceiling, which it worked out pretty good. It weighs about 17,000 pounds. And then we had to build temporary walls. So we rented walls. Actually, those, since we are in the Stanley Cup Finals, those belong to the NHL.
Okay.
So they rent them out. So we rented them out, and we built the 11,000 square feet exhibit. And the day we finished, basically the truck started rolling in with the stuff.
So how many different pieces are we looking at within the 11,000 square foot exhibit?
We're looking at around 300 pieces, 200 artifacts, and I think there's about 100 sketches and drawings.
Okay. And what was the most difficult piece of the exhibition to set up?
The biggest piece over here is the pod racer, and that was the biggest piece to put in. The whole platform is 42 feet long, and the floor is not quite level, so there was a bit of shimming to do. So, and the pieces are very, very heavy.
And so now, did this come in a number of pieces, and then it had to be
Those came
assembled?
in 3 crates. We had the 2 engines in 2 crates and the cockpit in the 3rd crate.
How long did it take to set all of this up?
We took a little less than 3 weeks to set up all the artifacts and another 3 weeks to build the temporary gallery. So we did the whole thing over a 6 weeks period.
Right.
So it was, those were 10, 12-hour days sometimes and 6 days a week.
So now you've worked very closely with all of the different pieces, obviously.
Yes.
What's your favorite part of the exhibit?
I think the part that I like the most are the sketches where you see the development and of the different characters, because they show you the how Lucas saw the characters for his film and how they developed into what they are at the end.
And it's interesting to see that quite often that original sketch isn't at all what it ended up being.
Exactly, exactly. You look at Jabba the Hutt, for example. He started with legs. He ended up with none.
Yes, he was a giant slug in the end.
Yeah, yeah. So it's quite interesting.
So now the Star Wars Identities exhibit opens here today at the museum. Now, where did the idea come from to make it so interactive, to have a bracelet that you would scan and for you to build a character?
That was developed with X3 production, and the Montreal Science Center helped them develop the scientific content, and they wanted to develop something interesting in order to see the collection, but at the same time develop an identity, because throughout the whole exercise, they're developing different personalities for the movie, and then they just married that with your own experience.
Right. It's really great. The exhibit will be running until when, Andre?
Until Labor Day weekend.
Okay, perfect. So when you come, you will get your bracelet.
Yes.
And as you go through the exhibit, there'll be all sorts of different areas where you can learn information and more background about the characters than I ever thought went into them.
Exactly. Yeah, you get your bracelet and an audio guide as well.
Yes.
And then as you go through it, you walk in different zones, and then the audio guide kicks in and it tells you everything about the exhibit and the artifacts.
Perfect. So
All right.
once again, the exhibit opens here today at the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum and will run until Labor Day weekend. Whether you are a Star Wars fan or not, it's breathtaking. There are incredible sketches, costumes, a lot to see here at the exhibit.